that's the big thing I think with Mazzulla is like situational awareness of like, hey, other team went on like a 10-0 run. Maybe I should call a timeout, but he's trying to let them play through it. So I get that to a certain extent, but it's kind of giving me shades of Brad. Ime early on didn't want to call timeouts. He wanted to let them work through it too. So I get that he's trying to do that, but at the same time, I think you also need to try and figure out, hey, maybe I can call a timeout, not just to even like stop a run, but to also just bring everyone in, communicate, see where guys are at, because these guys are running a lot. The pace is way up for the Celtics offense. And that's great, except you've got guys who are playing heavy minute workload. And the one that I am worried about the most, especially after last night, Al Horford. Al Horford played like 40 minutes. They had like no other true centers that got like any playing time. They put Kornet in for like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. They were like, hey, let's just go ahead, throw him in, see what happens. And then like they're like, okay, never mind, come back. And then that was it.
I said this on the last episode, right? The last thing you want Luke Kornet guarding is a back down big with some strength that's going to dislodge you. And Cleveland just went straight at Luke Kornet with Robin Lopez. They were just like, right, we'll throw some just a body at you that's going to dislodge you. And it kind of just made his position in the rotation untenable for that game. Interestingly enough, the Celtics still didn't go to Vonleh. I think that was an interesting development. Yeah. Big tell. I will say as well, like when we're talking about communications and calling timeouts, if you remember, there was a game last season, I forget which one it was, but there was a miscommunication on Udoka with an ATO.
I remember that. I remember that as well.
And it was and Udoka kind of it was the first time since Udoka had been head coach that he put his hands up and accepted the responsibility that, hey, that's on me. I didn't verbalize the scheme and the principles correctly. I'll do that better. So this communication thing with a new head coach and some of your players, specifically your starters or your stars, that isn't new. We saw this happen last year. And another thing that's kind of been prevalent in my mind is, hey, we've played 7. We've gone to overtime twice. That's very reminiscent of how the Celtics were last season under Udoka to start the year, because it wasn't until January where their defense kind of really settled into itself that they started just shutting up shop on teams. So I feel like there's quite a few similarities between this season and the start of last season. The only good thing is there doesn't seem to be as much infighting. We haven't had Marcus Smart out here calling out guys, saying that Jalen and Jason just want to be the stars. Like there seems to be a lot more continuity there. But some of the issues that there's definitely been like it's a bit of Groundhog Day, right? We're reliving some of these issues.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing that we all need to kind of keep in focus too. I mean, it is definitely good that the locker room is together on this. I think the only thing that's really hurting them right now is who knows how this team starts if they have Rob. And if they have Rob healthy, like who knows? They might only have like one loss, because the biggest problem that they have is they don't have another body to throw in there that's trustworthy at the center position. If you go ahead and do that, you're running out a much bigger lineup if you're doing double bigs. Or if you decide to just have one center out there, you've got Tatum at the 4 or Grant at the 4 occasionally, and then you're able to throw Allen at the 5. You're able to cycle those guys in. It gives you a little bit more ability to stagger players. It just would work better with the lineup. But you don't have Rob, and you're probably not going to have Rob for at least another month and a half or so. I think we looked at the timeline, or maybe I looked at it. It might have been on the pregame. We looked at the timeline. I think we're looking at least another 6 weeks minimum based on what the original diagnosis was. So if that's the case, then they got to start looking at other options. If you can't turn to any of the 3 bigs that you got on your back end of the roster to take any minutes at all, and granted, I said this before, I'll say it again, this Cleveland team, that is a nightmare matchup for the Celtics right now, because they don't have another big on the lineup that they can just throw out there besides Al Horford. Like, Al gives you the versatility. He gives you a little bit of ability with the pick and pop. He can hit 3-pointers. He's the only other guy out there that can actually defend decently against Mobley and Allen. And even then, like, you're running him into the ground. By the time you get to Christmas and Al's finally back, or Rob's finally back, Al's going to be burnt out. They have to do something just for Al Horford's sake. Like, please save his knees. For the love of God, save his knees. God, I can't see it again, man.
I mean, we did say on the last episode that we're gonna break down some of the trade targets and the free agent targets for big men. And you know, if we've got time tomorrow, Friday, once I'm back from having the tattoo sitting, this is where the time difference works in our favor. We can certainly do that, right? Because there's a few guys and there's a couple of trade proposals, and then you've got your free agency. But I agree, you know, I was against adding Vonleh to this rotation in the first place. I just felt like he was a net neutral addition that wasn't really going to see minutes. Justin Jackson, I was a little bit more high on, but again, I wasn't expecting him to play. I just feel like those are, and I get it, like 14th and 15th in the roster, they only play in garbage time anyway, but I just felt like there was definitely a need for a big man, that you could have gone towards a veteran that could give you some legitimate minutes, right? And you are right, like if Rob Williams is there, do we see Jarrett Allen slipping screens as often and just getting like being wide open for easy dunks around the rim? No, because Rob's going to be there. He's going to rotate over, and Rob seems to do quite well against Allen generally. So that's probably not going to happen. We don't see as many drives to the rim, so then all of a sudden the 3-point line kind of just narrows a bit because everybody's their pickup points are a little bit higher on the floor because you don't have to worry about being beaten off the dribble. And for Horford, like, I mean, I'll keep notes. If anyone who's been following my work over the years, you know that I have my trusty notebooks. I keep notes during games. Quarter one of the last notes I took in the first quarter, this was one of the worst Al Horford quarters I've seen in a long time. I think his game, and then at the end of overtime, I was like, this was a really good game from Al Horford. Because obviously these notes are happening in real time, or my version of real time. So Al Horford, to start the game, he missed a few defensive rotations. He made a few bad mistakes on offense, a bit of butterfingers. I think he come off of I think it was a wedge screen, and he, instead of going into the post where he was meant to go, he kind of fled to the corner and just messed up the pass. There was a few things where I was like, man, this just isn't Al's night. And if Al Horford isn't playing well against a team that runs a double big lineup with a stretch 4 or stretch 5 in Mobley that can put the ball on the floor, just do everything, and then an explosive big like Jarrett Allen, we're screwed. We're in trouble real quick. Now, obviously, Horford picked it up, ended up with a double-double, played the angles on defense like he always does, did a really great job. But that first quarter was worrying. And what was more concerning was, who the hell do you bring in if Horford's struggling that's going to be able to give you that impact, right? So that's definitely going to be a big issue. And I think it'll be a big issue till Rob's back. The bigger concern is, even if Rob's back and Mazzulla goes to that double big lineup again, like, and we start seeing more like Ime Udoka-esque, who the hell do you trust coming off the bench to give those two guys a breather? Are we just going small all the time? Because obviously Vonleh's lost trust. Luke Kornet can do what he can do, but again, if you're up against someone with a bit of strength, there needs to be an extra addition somewhere.